if you looked at young blacks and young whites with a discerning eye and a careful hearing, they have been telling us, and we would not listen, that what is happening in this country to them.
Mr. Howe, if I can just stop you, Mr. Howe, for a moment. You say you're not shocked. Does this mean that you condone what happened in your community last night?
I condone, of course not. What I'm going to condone it for, what I'm concerned about more than anything else, there is a young man called Mark Duggan. He has parents, he has brothers, he has sisters, and few yards away from where he lives, a police officer blew his head off.
Well, Mr. Howe, we have to...
Let me finish.
Mr. Howe, we have to wait for the official inquiry before we can say things like that. We don't know what happened to Mr. Duggan. We are going to wait for the police report on it. If I can take you on a little bit, you were talking about your grandson, you were talking about young people. You were talking about your grandson, you were talking...
They have been stopping and searching young blacks for no reason at all. I have a grandson, he's an angel, and he began to think he was coming of age when the police slapped him up against the wall and searched him, and he thought he had now had a gold star. I asked him the other day, apropos of a sense that something was going seriously wrong in this country. I said, how many times have the police searched you? He said, Papa, I can't count. There's so many times.
Mr. Howe, that may well have happened, and if you say it did, I am not to gainsay you, but that is not an excuse to go out rioting and cause the sort of damage that we have been seeing over the last few days.
Where were you in 1981 in Brixton?
Mr.
They had I don't call it rioting, I call it an insurrection of the masses of the people. It is happening in Syria, it is happening in Clapham, it's happening in Liverpool, it's happening in Port of Spain, Trinidad, and that is the nature of the historical moment.
In terms of the poor and disenfranchised, you have, poor white folks who culturally identify with poor black people. And the struggle, and that's quite scary for the elite, for the elites in white society. Mind you, all white people don't own all of anything. We as black people, I think, would do ourselves a great service by, really clarifying that. Like, we need to know that all white people are not the problem. Not all. Most people, black or white, are blind, deaf, and dumb and don't know what the hell is going on. But poor white people, through hip-hop, have begun to kind of wake up and see their plight is the same as poor black people.
What you're doing is you're equating black culture with criminality and you are. Let me finish. No, and you said let me finish. And you said David Lammy, when you heard him, sounded white, and what you meant by that was that white people equals being respectable. Absolutely. And that white people, by adopting black cultural norms, look, black culture in this country has had a huge contribution. Our music and a whole range of cultural ways.
You glorify rap?
David,
I use rap in schools to teach children literary devices, and it is a fantastic way for children. It's very good for David, to really engage boys.
Rap with rioting on the streets? Is that what you think?
It certainly glorifies it.
Actually, if you look at rap actually glorifies some rap. If you look at their videos, actually, it reinforces the materialistic world that we live in. When was the last time you watched a rap video or looked at a rap song? Tell me about a rap artist, David.
David, how much do you actually know about hip-hop? I'm genuinely curious to know about this because, you're a historian, you deal with empirical evidence, you base your theories on evidence. So explain what your evidence is before you make, frankly, what a lot of viewers will find offensive generalisations.
I think in these are times when we need plain speaking.
and plain speaking is necessary. You remember, I'm going to give you them. If you will stop interrupting, you're getting a sort of doing a trainee Jeremy Paxman. I took part in James Dream School. I was involved in this. We used rap. We used rap to explore particular notions of masculinity, of violence, of dominance, of the relationship between old aristocratic violent practice and modern gang culture. So I mean, it's interesting. It is historically interesting.
So when we look at the facts, just bringing this back to the rioting, when we look at the facts, clearly it was not a riot that was only dominated by black people. It was there were many white people. We see in the training that gave course. Are you saying those?
It started as a black protest about the killing of a black man. And so, can we just have that fact absolutely
a peaceful protest originally?
Actually, a community protest.
It very quickly ceased to be peaceful.
We've got to understand in Tottenham in particular, okay, where look, in this country, black people are 30 times more likely to be stopped and searched. In Tottenham, 1 in 2 people. Let me finish.
80% of gun crime is black.
1 in 2 people. 1 in 2 kids in Tottenham grow up in poverty.
I know.
And there's a sense of harassment by the police. And this is just the latest, let's not forget, in an example of a civilian killed in very dubious circumstances. And what the IPCC originally came up with, that they'd fired...
I'll tell you, I want to move this on slightly, because David Cameron, interestingly enough, said this wasn't about race at all. He thinks it's about crime. No, he said crime, actually. Let's look at the damage to the social fabric in terms of what this says. You talked about shopping, you know, the sort of shopping violence.
Shopping with violence, yeah.
Do you think, Drina, that this is part of an acquisitive culture, that sort of endless consumerism? You know, it wasn't mindless rioting, it was rioting with a very
absolutely, and actually we are the society, we've tripped ourselves up, because what have we emphasised to our children in terms of success? Success equals money. That's what we've been saying to our children for such a long time. Success equals money. So is it any wonder that the type of shops they were looting, it was all about materialism? And you know, if you think about it, we've had a recession. One of the issues of our recession is about the way that banks behave. We let our banks off, basically.
Most people, black or white, are blind, deaf, and dumb and don't know what the hell is going on. But poor white people, through hip-hop, have begun to kind of wake up and see their plight is the same as poor black people. And now we can just have some artists to critically, spell that out, like really point that out and show people why that is the case. I think we would be doing our job as artists, but that's another show. I'm real big on context, especially historical context, Babanu, and we've done a number of shows on the Moorish influence in Spain and in Europe. But like just as a precursor, just to quickly go back over some of that history, can you update our listeners as to just the course of history as it had to do with the Moors, Africans, helping to civilize the European continent?
Wow, we got several, I would even call it discrepancies here. Most people think of Europeans as people with light skin and straight hair. It could be blonde, it could even be black, it could be, blue eyes or brown eyes or even like gray eyes. Most people identify those people as Europeans. And people with dark skin, broad lips, thick lips, broad noses, and kinky hair are never identified as Europeans. But, studies, archaeological studies have shown that the first people in Europe were, black African people.
Mm-hmm.
Weird things start to break down and evidence starts to get a little weird as, the civilizations that were built there. You had black civilizations in Europe. Then Caucasians started to develop as a racial type.
Mm-hmm.
So when we speak of the Moors coming to civilize Europe, that was another way of black people going up into Europe. And this time it was to address an issue.